12 things I've finally made peace with. Looking back at my life, it didn't happen all at once. There wasn't a single morning I woke up and said, I've made peace. No thunderclap, no final chapter neatly tied with a ribbon. It was slower than that, quieter, like dust settling after a long storm. When the light finally starts to filter through again, and you realize the weight you've carried isn't quite as heavy as it used to be. I spent so many years trying to get things right, to be right, to heal what hurt, to hold on to what mattered, to outrun what didn't. I used to think peace would come when everything made sense, when the pain was explained, the questions were answered, the people who hurt me apologized, and the people I hurt forgave me. But that's not how peace comes. At least, not for me. Peace, it turns out, is messier. It's a quiet acceptance that some stories will never close the way you wanted them to, that some people will never see your side, that your younger self did the best they could with what they had, even if it wasn't enough. It's a sigh, not a celebration. A soft exhale that says, I don't have to carry this the same way anymore. I'm not sharing this to sound wise, or to pretend I have it all figured out. I don't. But I've lived long enough now to know that peace is possible. And more importantly, that it's not waiting on the world to give it to you. You find it when you decide to stop fighting yourself, when you stop rewriting what already happened and start gently living with it. So today, I want to tell you 12 things I've finally made peace with. Things that used to keep me awake at night. Things that used to burn in my chest. Things I held on to like they defined me, until I realized I was allowed to let go. You don't have to wait until the end of your life to feel light again. You don't have to stay tangled in the same thoughts, the same shame, the same fears. Maybe something in here sounds like your story too. If it does, I hope it gives you the courage to loosen your grip, even just a little. That's where peace begins, not in winning, not in fixing, just in letting go. When I was younger, I had this picture in my mind, maybe you did too. A version of myself that was polished, successful, admired. I thought I'd be someone who made all the right moves, someone who figured things out early and stuck the landing. I had timelines, I had expectations, and I really believed I could live up to them. But life had other plans. Some of the dreams I chased didn't happen. Some of the ones I caught didn't feel the way I thought they would. And some things I never even knew to dream about ended up shaping me far more than any plan I had made. There were jobs I never got, relationships I couldn't hold on to, versions of myself I tried to become and failed. For a long time, I saw those things as proof that I'd fallen short. I looked at my reflection and thought, you were supposed to be more than this. But somewhere along the line, I stopped judging that so harshly. I stopped trying to compare the life I lived to the one I imagined in my 20s. Because the person I became, while far messier, less polished, and more scarred, is also more compassionate, more resilient, and a hell of a lot more real. I've made peace with the gap between expectation and reality. Because now I understand. That gap is where life actually happens. That's where growth lives. That's where humility is born. I'm not who I thought I'd be. I'm someone else entirely. And to be honest, I like this person more. This version is honest, weathered, still standing. That counts for something. This one took me years to say out loud. I used to think every bond had to last forever to mean something. That if a friendship or a marriage or even a family connection didn't go the distance, it meant I failed, or they did. I held on too long, sometimes to people who had already let go. Sometimes to people who were only ever meant to walk with me for a little while. And I mourned those endings as if something had gone terribly wrong. But looking back now, I can see that some relationships aren't supposed to last forever. They serve a purpose to teach you, challenge you, mirror something back to you, and when that purpose is done, so is the connection. That doesn't make it worthless. It makes it human. I've lost people. Some drifted away. Some I had to walk away from. Some I loved deeply, but couldn't stay close to without losing myself. And some, well, some just left, without explanation, without closure. That used to drive me crazy. But here's what I've learned. Peace doesn't come from everyone staying. It comes from understanding that your path is sacred, even when it separates from someone else's. And that letting go isn't always betrayal. Sometimes it's the kindest thing you can do for both of you. I've made peace with the relationships that ended. The ones that broke my heart. The ones I outgrew. Even the ones I still miss sometimes. Because love doesn't always end in togetherness. But it can still be real, and it can still be enough. This one took a long time. Maybe the longest. There was a time when I held so much anger toward my parents. So many unspoken needs. So many moments where I felt unseen, unheard, unloved in the exact way I needed. I carried those feelings into adulthood, quietly blaming them for the things I struggled with, my insecurity, my fear of failure, the way I talked to myself in my own head. I thought they should have known better, done better. I saw their mistakes through the eyes of the child I once was, wounded, confused, longing for more. But then I became a parent myself, and I realized we're all just trying to figure it out. Parenting isn't a skill you master. It's a storm you try to sail through with a compass that sometimes fails you. My parents didn't have the tools. They didn't have the language. They didn't have the space to heal their own wounds, let alone help me with mine. Did they make mistakes? Yes, some of them left marks. But they also made sacrifices I didn't see until much later. They loved me, even if their love came out sideways, even if it sometimes hurt. They were fighting battles I couldn't see, carrying burdens they never named. I've made peace with the fact that their best wasn't always enough for me, but it was still their best. And now, I can hold both truths without resentment. Forgiving them didn't mean erasing the pain. It meant understanding that they were human too. And that maybe, just maybe, they were doing the same thing I was, trying not to mess up something. They loved more than anything, and still messing it up sometimes anyway. There was a time in my life when I twisted myself into shapes just to be understood. I'd explain, over-explain, defend, clarify. I wanted people to get me. I thought if they could just see my heart, the intention behind the mistake, the story behind the silence, the truth behind the choice, then maybe I'd finally feel seen. But it never really worked that way. Because no matter how clearly you speak, some people will still hear you through the filter of their own pain, their own assumptions, their own timing. And trying to manage that is like chasing wind. I've learned that being misunderstood is not always a reflection of you. Sometimes it's just part of being human. We all see each other through cloudy glass, through our own wounds, through the stories we've been told. And that's okay. There were friends I lost because I didn't say the right thing. Family members who judged choices they never asked the full story behind. People who painted versions of me that weren't mine to carry. For a long time I tried to fix that. But now, I let them. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. Because I've made peace with the fact that I don't owe the world a version of myself they can approve of. I owe myself the freedom to be honest. Even if it means being misunderstood. The ones who see you clearly, you won't have to beg them to. And the ones who don't, they're not the measure of your worth. Forgiveness used to feel impossible. It felt like giving something up, letting someone off the hook. It felt unfair, like if I forgave, I was saying what they did didn't matter. But the truth is, holding on was costing me more than letting go ever could. There were people in my life who hurt me deeply. With words, with absence, with betrayal. And I carried that pain for years, long after they had forgotten or moved on or never cared in the first place. I thought the weight gave me control, but all it gave me was exhaustion, One day, I realized something. They weren't suffering. From my anger, I was. I was reliving the same wounds, replaying the same scenes, poisoning my present with the pain of the past. So I forgave, quietly, not because they asked, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace, forgiveness. I've learned doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean reconnection. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It just means choosing to stop dragging the hurt around like it's part of who you are. I forgave for my own healing, for the version of me who needed rest, for the future I didn't want to sabotage with unresolved grief. That's how forgiveness changed my life, by returning it to me. If I could go back and speak to my younger self, I'd begin here, before the self-doubt, before the crash diets, before the mirror became an enemy. I'd tell her, your body is not the problem. It never was. I spent decades at war with myself, counting calories, critiquing photos, comparing every inch of me to someone else. I thought my value lived in my shape, my skin, the number on a scale. I waited to feel beautiful until I fit a certain mold, and I punished myself in the meantime. Then, I got older. And funny enough, that's when I finally made peace. My body changed, softened, wrinkled, slowed down. And somehow, I started to see it differently, not as a project to fix, but as a vessel that carried me through an entire lifetime, through heartbreak and joy, through childbirth and loss, through grief, dance, illness, laughter, through everything. This body held my babies. This body walked me through the worst days of my life. This body stayed alive even when my mind didn't want to. Why did I spend so long hating it? I've made peace with the fact that beauty was never about perfection. That the stretch marks, the scars, the lines, they're not flaws, they're evidence. I lived, I changed, I survived. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a problem to solve. I see a story. And I try to thank this body every day for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on it. It's easier to talk about the ways we've been hurt. We all carry those stories, the betrayals, the rejections, the wounds left by someone else's hands. But the truth I couldn't avoid as I got older was this: I've been the one who hurt others too. Not always on purpose. In fact, rarely on purpose. But intention doesn't erase impact. There are things I said that I can't take back. Times I was too tired, too proud, too afraid to show up for someone the way they needed me to. People I loved, but didn't know how to love well. There were moments I looked away when I should have leaned in, or stayed silent when I should have spoken. And for a long time I tried to justify those things, to myself, mostly. I told myself I didn't mean it, or they were too sensitive, or I was doing my best. And maybe some of that was true. But beneath all that noise was a deeper truth. I made mistakes. I caused pain. I let people down. Making peace with that didn't mean drowning in shame. It meant facing the mirror with open eyes. It meant reaching out when I could and letting go when I couldn't. It meant offering others what I had so desperately wanted: grace. Not as an excuse, but as a bridge. Learn that being a good person doesn't mean you never mess up. It means you're willing to admit it, to repair what can be repaired, and to carry the lessons forward with humility. I've made peace with my imperfections, not to avoid accountability, but to finally live with honesty. And in that honesty, I found something unexpected: softness toward myself, toward others, toward all of us stumbling through this life trying to get it right. There's a kind of pain that doesn't have a clean explanation. No lesson wrapped in a bow. No everything happens for a reason that makes it easier to bear. Just pain, loss, absence, moments that leave you standing in the middle of your life wondering what just happened. I used to think if I could find the reason, if I could make the pain mean something, then maybe I could control it. Maybe I could outthink the sorrow. But some things just don't come with a reason. A miscarriage, A best friend dying too young. A betrayal you never saw coming. The things that break you in half and don't even leave a note behind. And it's taken me years to stop demanding answers. Not everything has a why. Or if it does, we don't always get to know it. And that doesn't make it meaningless. It just makes it human. What I've learned is that peace doesn't come from understanding everything. It comes from learning how to live in the not knowing. From building a life not after the pain, but with it. Side by side. It becomes part of you, but not all of you. I no longer need the world to make sense to move forward. I just need to keep breathing, loving, showing up, even in the mystery. Especially in the mystery, that's where grace lives. In the letting go of needing to know why, and the choosing to keep living anyway. For so many years, I wore busyness like a badge of honor. If I wasn't exhausted, I wasn't doing enough. If my calendar wasn't full, I wasn't valuable. Productivity became a measure of self-worth. And rest? That was for after everything else was done, which of course never happened. Even in my quiet moments, I felt the itch to do something, clean something, prove something. I thought being needed made me important. That hustle meant purpose. But now in this later season of life, I see it differently. I sit on the porch sometimes for an hour doing nothing at all, just watching the wind move through the trees. And I realize I feel more me in those still moments than I ever did rushing from task to task. I don't need to be productive to matter. I don't need to be constantly useful to be worthy. I've made peace with stillness, with quiet days, with saying no, with not always having something to show for my time except presence. Some of the most important things I've ever done, listening, loving, healing, didn't happen on a to-do list. They happened in the pauses that I matter because I exist, not because I produce. That truth took a long time to believe. But now that I do, I guard it fiercely. Rest is not laziness. Rest is sacred. And I no longer confuse busyness with value. We celebrate bravery like it's the only way to live a life worth remembering. Be bold. Take the risk. Speak your truth. And yes, those things are beautiful when they happen. But what we don't talk about enough are the times we don't do them. The job we didn't apply for. The words we didn't say. The goodbye we couldn't face. The moments when fear held the pen and wrote the ending for us. I've had those moments. More than I care to admit, there were times I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. Times I chose comfort over confrontation. Times I let an opportunity pass because I was afraid I'd fail. Or worse, that I'd succeed and not know what to do with it. For years, I carried shame about those choices. I looked back and thought, if only I'd been braver, maybe things would be different. But the truth is, I wasn't ready. And that doesn't make me weak. That makes me human. Courage isn't something you either have or you don't. It's something that meets you when you're ready. And even when I wasn't ready, I was still growing, still surviving, still becoming. I've made peace with the moments I wasn't brave. Because even in those times, I was still trying. Still choosing the best I could with the strength I had. And that counts. Sometimes staying is brave. Sometimes leaving is. Sometimes just getting out of bed when your heart is breaking is an act of quiet heroism. I honor those moments now. The quiet courage that didn't look like bravery, but was. We're taught to chase big things, big love, big dreams, big wins. And while those moments are real and beautiful, they're not the majority of a life. Most of life, it's small. It's coffee in the morning. It's folding laundry while humming a song. It's the same drive home from work, the same familiar path to the kitchen, the same old jokes at the dinner table. For a long time, I overlooked those moments. I thought they were just the spaces between the real stuff. But now, I see them as everything. There's a kind of magic in the ordinary that you only notice once you slow down. Once you stop assuming that joy has to be explosive to be real. I used to wait for milestones, the birthday, the promotion, the vacation, thinking that's when I'd finally feel fulfilled. But the memories that have stayed with me the longest are the ones I didn't plan. The Sunday afternoon spent napping with a child curled under my arm. The way my partner looked at me over a sink full of dishes. The smell of rain on a Tuesday when nothing else was happening. That's the gold. The everyday, fleeting, blink and you miss it kind of gold. I've made peace with a life that doesn't always shine from the outside. Because on the inside, it's glowing with the warmth of 1,000 quiet joys. We all carry scars. Some are visible. Some are buried deep where no one else can see. For a long time I thought my pain defined me. The betrayal, the loss, the trauma I didn't ask for. I wore it like armor, sometimes like a warning. Here's what I've been through. Here's why I am the way I am. But there comes a time, or maybe it sneaks up on you, when you realize your wounds are part of your story, but they are not your name. I've lived through things I wouldn't wish on anyone. And for a long time, those things shaped how I saw the world. I was guarded, defensive, sometimes bitter. I blamed the pain for who I became, but pain isn't destiny. It's just a chapter. What matters more is what I did next, how I chose to keep going, how I chose to treat others and myself after everything. I am not just the broken parts. I am the rebuilding, the reaching out, the softening, even after being hardened by the world. I am the choice to love again, to trust again, to hope, even when it's terrifying. That's what I've made peace with. I don't have to pretend the wounds never happened. I just don't have to live inside them anymore. I get to tell the story now, not from the place of pain, but from the place of power. Quiet, earned, gentle power. Peace didn't come to me in a loud moment. It didn't arrive with trumpets or clarity or some grand awakening. It came slowly, almost invisibly. Like the way grief fades not because it stops hurting, but because your hands get stronger at carrying it. And that's what I want you to know. Peace isn't a finish line. It's not a reward for healing fast or getting everything right. It's not something you finally earn when your life is neat and tidy and figured out. No, peace is much quieter than that. It shows up when you stop fighting what already happened. When you stop asking your past to be different. When you stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never listening. I used to think I needed to be whole to be at peace. Now I know, peace is what makes you whole. These 12 things I've made peace with didn't all come from wisdom. Many came from exhaustion, from heartbreak, from looking in the mirror and realizing I couldn't carry it all anymore. And when I finally put those things down, the shame, the proving, the pretending, I didn't feel smaller. I felt free. So if you're listening to this and you're still in the thick of it, still trying to forgive, still trying to be enough, still trying to find your place in the story, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. You don't have to get it perfect to be at peace. You don't have to fix every broken thing. You just have to soften. You have to allow the truth to live beside you without controlling you. And you have to love yourself, not for who you might become, but for who you already are. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to let go, even before it all makes sense. I've made peace with a lot of things, but the most important one? I've made peace with myself. And that, more than anything, has changed. The way I live every day I have left. And if I can do that, so can you.